Hi, I'm Anna, and this is Rocket Therapy, the official podcast of the Edmonds College Rocketry Society. Joining us today, Austin.
Hello.
And Bree.
Hello.
Today we are talking about the National Association of Rocketry's, or NAR's, Level 1 and Level 2 certification process. As of recording, Austin has his Level 2 certification while Bree has her Level 1, and while I'm just starting the process.
So the first steps of getting your level 1. So you're going to have to start off with deciding, are you going to want to use a commercially available kit, or if you're going to want to be designing your own rocket. Now, if you're brand new to rocketry, it's advised that you pick a commercially available kit, preferably one that has directions or that has been built before by other people. So that way you'll be able to seek advice and follow the directions. Now, if you already have a little bit of rocketry experience in mid-power rocketry, you may feel comfortable enough to go and design your own rocket. Either way, if you're going to be picking a commercially available kit or designing your own rocket, you're going to need to do a simulation on your rocket. The program that is most commonly used, because it's free, is OpenRocket. The importance of modeling your rocket is it'll give you a bunch of information there's no way you could know otherwise. Some of that information being the stability of your rocket, so center of pressure and center of gravity, which motor you're going to want to use, what motor delay you're going to need for your ejection charge, projected altitude, projected speed, and a bunch of other information that'll be important throughout the certification process. Once you have your simulation, the next step is to build your rocket. Now, there's hundreds of different ways to go about building your rocket, so we're not going to go into much depth in this video. Linked down below in the description box and on our channel is a playlist that has the anatomy of building a high-power rocket. Ryan Winslow, he has a very detailed YouTube series about building a high-power rocket, and you can get a lot of good information there about building techniques and what to do and what not to do.
The most important thing to do before starting is to do your research. So try to look at those vids, try to look at some other posts on maybe the Rocketry forum about how to build a high-power rocket, especially if you're new to the hobby. Doing your research will save you a lot of grief, especially if you have a kit with instructions that don't necessarily match, which does happen sometimes.
It's also important during the building process to be weighing parts of your rocket, sections of your rocket, and just the overall rocket, so that way you're able to update your simulation with the appropriate masses, so you'll get the most accurate data when you're going out to launch. Because you don't want to just put your rocket on the pad, cross your fingers, and hope it goes well. If you do all your research in your simulations beforehand, you will be able to say with a very high degree of certainty if you'll have a successful flight or not.
One more thing to note when picking out your rocket is looking at the motor. In order to qualify for a NAR Level 1 certification, your rocket must fly with a motor of at least 160 Newton seconds total impulse. This is usually at least an H motor. One of the most commonly used H motors that I'm familiar with is the H128-14W, which is a RMS motor by Aerotech. And that is a reloadable motor system motor, and you can get the case and the propellants for about $100. But every time you use it, you only have to pay for the $25 motor propellant refill, which I think is a great deal and a good consideration.
Alternately, if you don't want to use an RMS motor and don't want to commit to buying hardware and the motor reload, the level 1 motor I'm most familiar with being the DMS H100. So DMS is disposable motor system. And now these are really simple is you open up your packaging, set your delay, stick it in your rocket, you're good to go. You don't need to build anything. You don't need to reload anything. It's grab and go. So those are good for if you're not going to be launching frequently, or if you're just getting into the hobby and you want to get a feel for it, those are a good route to go just to get your certification and get your foot in the door.
One thing to note with both these motors is that you do have to set the delay. Most commercial motors come with an extra long delay. The H128 motor that I mentioned earlier comes with a 14-second delay. That is usually insufficient for level 1 flights. This means that you will have to either borrow or acquire a delay tool to grind down that delay and set it lower. Using your simulation, you can find out what time your delay should be set at, and once you have that value, you just set your motor to the delay that is.
From personal experience, I would recommend borrowing the motor delay because they can be a little expensive sometimes, or they're out of stock, for example, which segues into the next step. You have your rocket, you have your motor, now you need to launch your rocket. Before you go out to launch your rocket, if your goal is to get a level 1 certification or a junior level 1 certification, you need to have a NAR membership. All you have to do is go online the day before and make your payment and select which magazine you would like.
It's good practice to make sure that you will have your NAR card with you when you get to the launch site. This means registering for your NAR membership 4 to 6 weeks beforehand to allow for the shipping of your NAR card.
If you haven't received your card yet, there is also a website where you can put your number in and it'll pull up your information and show that you are a current member. Once you have your number, you'll need a launch site. There are many different resources you can use to find a place to launch. One of the most common is to go into the National Association of Rocketry website and go to the NAR section locator. We'll have this linked in the description below. And this will allow you to look up what rocketry clubs are in your area and which clubs are hosting high power launches. Specifically for us in the Washington area, the big main clubs are the Washington Aerospace Club and the Tri-Cities Rocketry Club. Washington Aerospace Club is currently not hosting any high power launches as they are currently searching for a new launch site. Tri-Cities Rocketry Club is hosting regular monthly launches. They're down in Pasco, Washington, which is about a 4-hour drive from Edmonds College. Once you're at your launch site, you have your rocket, you have your motor, and you have your NAR membership, you're going to need a witness. Now, in the case of launching with a school group such as Edmonds College, we have members within our group that are level 1 and level 2 certified, including our advisor. This allows us to be able to be our own witnesses and do our own certification flights. But if you are not flying with a group of individuals, you can go contact the launch director at the launch site, and they'll be able to help you in finding someone to serve as your witness.
If you need to borrow any equipment like a delay drilling tool, this is a great time to ask as well.
And usually at most launch sites, there will be some vendors there with trailers that are just full of rocketry supplies. So you do realize, oh my goodness, I forgot something, you'll be able to purchase it from them, or more than likely be able to find an individual that has the item that you may need.
Going to launches is also a great place to spec out the level 2 certification rocket.
Once you have your witness, it's time for paperwork.
Woo!
The paperwork is a 1-page front and back sheet that is filled out by you and your witness. You'll put down your personal information, NAR number, address, phone number, things like that to ensure this is you. Witness is going to be running you through a safety checklist on the back, which we will have these documents attached in the description. The safety checklist is going to ensure that your rocket is ready to launch and ready to launch safely. Once you have met all the criteria for passing the safety inspection, you're ready to go launch. Before you can go launch, you'll need to secure a few witnesses. Some of your witnesses will be your certification team. If you have a friend that is just hanging around and needs a job to do, go ahead and grab them and have them stand somewhere so they can help you find your rocket. Before you're able to go out to a pad, you're going to have to go through another inspection, which is going to be done by the range safety officer. They're going to run you through a very similar checklist that you already did with your certification team to ensure your rocket is safe to fly. Once they have okayed your rocket, you're ready to move to your pad. Your certification team should be able to help you get your rocket set up on the pad, but by the time it comes for a certification flight, you should have already witnessed the process or perhaps done the process on another rocket. So you should be familiar with what's going to happen.
Whenever you launch a rocket, it's always good to have the people watching stand at opposite ends of the flight line, hopefully to triangulate the rocket as it comes down later for retrieval.
This is also a situation where walkie-talkies can be helpful because you can have your witnesses stand in one location and they'll be able to talk you into where your rocket landed.
Especially since most launch sites are out of cell phone range.
Once your rocket is on the pad and you have your witnesses secured, they're going to go through and launching all the rockets that are out there. You could be on a rack of rockets where there's only 3 rockets going, or you could have 20 people ahead of you. It's important to pay attention to what is happening out on the range, so that way you're aware when your rocket is being launched and you can make sure your witness is paying attention.
So a good range coordinator will check with you before they launch any certification.
Yes, but it is ultimately on you to ensure everything is in order. If your witness doesn't launch your flight, you will have to launch again, which would mean buying another motor and going through the process again.
which is never cool.
Once you've had a successful flight, meaning that the rocket went up, the parachute deployed appropriately, and the rocket had a nice soft landing, your witnesses will talk you into your rocket. We're going to go pick it up and bring it back to your witness. Once you bring your rocket back to your witness, they're going to ensure that all parts of the rocket that launched with it are still there. So your parachute, your nose cone, your motor, everything needs to be there, and the rocket needs to be in a condition in which it can launch again, maybe with minor repairs. That is up to the discretion of your witness. But as long as your rocket is in good shape and it's not missing any parts, you'll be granted your certification. They'll sign your paperwork saying you had a successful flight. They'll sign your temporary membership card, and then it's time to celebrate.
Then all that's left to do is send the paperwork into the NAR headquarters, the address of which is listed at the bottom of your paperwork. Certification will certify you to fly H and I motors through a specific total impulse.
Can your certification expire?
The answer is no for NAR. Even if your membership does expire, which it can, you will get your certifications back if you re-register as a member of NAR. Tripoli is slightly different, and this is one of the main areas why people argue over NAR versus Tripoli. But if you allow your membership to lapse as a Tripoli member, then you will not get any certifications back that you gained while a Tripoli member. Now that we've discussed level 1 certifications, let's talk about level 2 certifications. Nice thing is, level 2 certification is almost exactly like level 1 certifications. The only difference is your rocket has to be able to fly a J motor, and you have to be able to pass a written test before you fly. This written test goes over questions about motor safety, range safety, FAA regulations, and good safety practices. Question pool for which NAR provides, and you can look at it and memorize the answers and make sure you're up to date on all of your NAR safety regulations before you take the test. So just ask your local NAR section.
If you're curious about what it means to be a NAR member, feel free to check out our previous video in this series all about NAR membership. That said, if you have any questions about motors or how to use OpenRocket, keep an eye out for future videos on these topics. This has been Rocket Therapy, the official podcast of Edmonds Rocketry Society. Thanks for listening, and remember, up is easy, down is hard.